Trust, I thought I had it, but she shattered it all with a single trip. My name's David Miller, and at 38 years old, I'd like to think I had a solid life, a successful career as a marketing executive for a tech company, a nice house in the suburbs, and a wife who I thought I could trust, Sophia Miller, 35, a high school teacher who had the kind of smile that made you forget the world around you. We'd been married for 8 years, and from the outside, everything looked perfect, but I should have known. Something always felt off in the past few months, like a distant murmur that couldn't quite break the surface. It started small, missed calls, texts with her head down when I walked into a room, and an increasing number of girls' nights out that seemed to stretch into weekends. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, who was I to question her? We were married. We loved each other. At least, that's what I thought until I learned the truth. It was a Tuesday night, and I was planning to surprise her. She had been working so hard lately. I knew she was supposed to be on a business trip for a school conference, but I decided to drop by her hotel and take her out for dinner. We hadn't spent a lot of quality time together in the past few months, and I was eager to reconnect. I never should have gone. I should have waited until she was back. I parked in the hotel lot, my heart fluttering with excitement, but when I walked into the lobby, something felt wrong. I tried calling her, but she wasn't answering. I thought maybe she was still in a meeting, so I headed to the front desk to ask where she might be. That's when the receptionist hit me with the bombshell. "Sorry, sir. Mrs. Miller checked out about an hour ago. She said she was meeting a colleague for dinner." I froze. Sophia never told me she was meeting anyone, and there was no conference dinner. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but one stood out above the rest. Where was she really going? I decided to follow her. My gut was telling me that something was off. I jumped in my car, tailing her drive, keeping a careful distance to avoid suspicion. She drove through the city, making turns I didn't recognize, until she pulled into a secluded apartment complex on the outskirts of town. My heart dropped to my stomach as I saw her car parked beside another one, a black sedan. I knew that car. It was Nathan's. Nathan Caldwell, 40 years old, CEO of a startup, sophisticated, charming, and, apparently, my wife's lover. He had been her boss at the school for the past 2 years, and I had always found his casual attitude a bit unsettling. But I never imagined this. How long had this been going on? My hands clenched on the steering wheel as I watched her walk toward the building. Then, Nathan came out. He greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, a kiss that lingered just a bit too long for comfort. I wanted to jump out of the car and confront them right then and there, but I held back. I needed proof. I waited in the parking lot for hours, barely able to breathe, watching them disappear into his apartment. My heart felt like it was being torn in two. The woman I trusted most in this world, the woman I gave everything for, had betrayed me. I didn't know how long I sat there, but when I finally saw Sophia leave, she was wearing different clothes. She had changed into a red dress, one that wasn't hers. Her hair was disheveled, and her face flushed, but nothing could disguise the guilt written all over her. I waited for her to drive off, then made my move. I pulled up in front of the apartment, parked, and then marched to Nathan's front door. I didn't knock. I didn't wait for permission. I was furious. How dare he? I was ready to confront both of them. When Nathan answered the door, his face dropped. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "What the hell, David?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't need to say a word. His face told me everything I needed to know. His guilty expression was all the evidence I needed. "Get the hell out of my house," I growled. But I wasn't talking to Nathan anymore. My gaze shifted, and I saw Sophia, standing behind him, her face pale. "David," she whispered, "it's not what you think." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Not what I think? Really, Sophia? After everything? You didn't think I would find out?" Nathan stepped forward, trying to intervene, but I wasn't having it. "Stay the hell out of this," I snapped. "This is between me and my wife." Sophia looked at me, her eyes filled with shame, but there was something else there too. Fear. "You weren't supposed to find out," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Well, I did," I said coldly, my voice ice. "And now, you're going to pay." I turned around, walked out of the apartment, and slammed the door behind me. But I wasn't done. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. No, I would make sure she felt the weight of her betrayal, and I would start by turning her perfect little world upside down. This was far from over. I thought I had seen everything until I learned just how deep the betrayal ran. The drive back home was a blur. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't think straight. My mind kept replaying what I'd just witnessed. Sophia and Nathan, in his apartment, the look on her face when she saw me, the way Nathan had tried to act like he was innocent, like I was the crazy one for being upset. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a full-on lie. She had been playing me 4 months, maybe even longer. I couldn't let it go, but as I stewed in my anger, something else kept nagging at me. There was something more to this. Nathan wasn't the only one to blame. I woke up the next morning feeling numb, the weight of everything crashing down on me. My phone buzzed, texts from Sophia, begging me to talk. I ignored them. Then came the call from her. Her voice was shaking, apologetic, and full of guilt, but I couldn't find it in myself to care. What she had done was unforgivable. But as the day dragged on, I started to see things differently. As much as I wanted to keep running the narrative in my head that this was all her fault, there was a deeper, darker reality I needed to face. My mind drifted back to the night before when I'd seen Sophia and Nathan together. There had been more than just physicality in the air. There was familiarity between them, something deeper than I had first thought. And then it hit me, Nathan wasn't the only one who had a secret. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait around for Sophia to give them to me. It was just past noon when I showed up at Nathan's apartment. I had no plan. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I wasn't leaving without the truth. This time, when I rang the doorbell, there was no hesitation. Nathan opened the door, but he wasn't alone. There was a woman standing behind him. She was tall, with blonde hair and sharp features. I didn't recognize her at first, but something about her seemed familiar. "What do you want, David?" Nathan's voice was defensive, but I wasn't in the mood for games. "I need answers," I said through gritted teeth, my voice a dangerous growl. "Why don't you tell me the truth, Nathan? I've got a lot of questions, and I'm done playing nice." The blonde woman stepped forward, looking at me with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "You're David, right?" she asked, as if she already knew everything about me. I nodded, confused but irritated. "What's going on here? Who the hell are you?" She smirked. "I'm Lila, Nathan's girlfriend." She said the word like it was some sort of badge of honor. I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. "What?" I muttered, suddenly feeling like the floor had fallen out from under me. I thought I was getting the answers I needed, but now I had more questions. "Nathan's not the only one with a secret, David," Lila said, her voice dripping with mockery. "You didn't think your wife would just fall for someone like him, did you? This is bigger than you think." My chest tightened as the realization hit me like a freight train. "What the hell do you mean?" I managed to choke out. Lila smiled darkly. "You've been played, David. Sophia wasn't just having an affair with Nathan. She's been having affairs with more than just him." I felt my blood run cold. "More than just him?" I repeated, not sure if I was hearing her right. "Yes," Lila said, taking a step back and gesturing to herself. "She came to me a few months ago, desperate to get Nathan's attention. She was frustrated because he wasn't taking her seriously. So, she came to me for help. She wanted me to teach her how to be more persuasive." I was speechless. My mind struggled to process the words coming out of her mouth. "I didn't think she'd actually follow through," Lila continued. "But she did. She got herself in deeper and deeper with Nathan. And let's just say I helped her out when things started to get a little out of hand." I couldn't wrap my head around it. My wife, Sophia, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had been playing me, yes, but she had been involved with multiple people. I wasn't just her fool. I was part of a bigger game that she had been playing all along. "You're telling me that Sophia came to you for advice on how to seduce Nathan?" I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. Lila shrugged, unfazed. "It wasn't just Nathan. She wanted to make him jealous, David. She wanted to see how far she could go to get a rise out of him. And you know what? She got it. She got everything she wanted." I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I could barely keep my thoughts in one place. My wife wasn't just a cheater. She wasn't just lying to me. She had been playing me, manipulating me, all while pretending to be the woman I married. "That's enough," I spat, barely holding it together. "You need to get out of my face." I turned on my heel and stormed out of Nathan's apartment, my mind racing faster than my feet. I didn't know what to do with this new information. The betrayal felt deeper now. It wasn't just about her and him anymore, it was about everyone. Nathan, Lila, and Sophia had all been in on this twisted game, and I was the last one to know. But there was one thing I knew for sure: it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I was done being the victim. I had been played, humiliated, and betrayed. But now, I was in control. The drive home was a blur, but the thought that kept crashing against my skull was clear: I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Nathan and Lila's twisted little confession had shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, but in a strange way, it gave me clarity. I had been blindsided, yes, but I wasn't going to let that define me. They had underestimated me. They thought I would crumble, that I'd beg for Sophia to come back, to forgive her. But I wasn't that man. Not anymore. No, I was done with being the fool. Now, I was in control. I sat in my car, parked in front of my house, staring at the front door as if the solution to everything lay behind it. Sophia was inside. Her betrayal still echoed in my ears, her false apologies ringing hollow in my mind. She thought she could get away with it. She thought I wouldn't find out. But I had, and now I was going to make sure she felt the weight of it. But it wasn't just her I had to deal with. Nathan, Lila, they were both part of this game, and they had no idea what was coming. I had no plan yet, not fully, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let them think they could have everything, that they could just waltz away from this with no consequences. I would make sure they paid, and not just financially. No, this wasn't about money. This was about ruining everything they thought they had. I stepped out of the car and walked up to the door, my footsteps heavy with purpose. The moment I opened it, I saw her. Sophia. She was sitting on the couch, her eyes wide with anticipation, waiting for me to finally come home. She had sent me dozens of messages, but I hadn't answered. I knew what she wanted, to fix it, but I wasn't interested in fixing anything anymore, not with her. I stood there in the doorway, staring at her. She looked so damn innocent, like she had no idea what I had learned, what I now knew, but I wasn't going to let her off easy. David, she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. Can we just talk? Talk? I repeated, letting the word hang in the air like poison. You want to talk, Sophia? I could see her flinch, and a pang of guilt twisted in my chest. I wanted to feel sorry for her. She was my wife, but I couldn't. Not anymore. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I think we need to have a serious conversation, I said, my tone calm but deadly, about everything. Her face paled, but she tried to hold it together. David, please, I swear it's not what you think. I made a mistake. A mistake? I interrupted, walking toward her, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. No, Sophia. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy groceries. A mistake is accidentally spilling wine on the couch. This was calculated. You did this on purpose. You had an affair. You had multiple affairs. She recoiled, her face crumpling. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered, but I wasn't buying it anymore. No, I said, shaking my head. You wanted this. You wanted all of it. The excitement. The thrill of getting away with it. You wanted Nathan, and you got him. But you wanted more than that, didn't you? You wanted to make him jealous. You wanted to see how far you could go. Well, now we see how far you were willing to go. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. She had crossed the line, and she needed to understand that. David, I love you, she whispered, reaching out for me. I made a huge mistake. Please, just let me explain. I pulled back, every instinct telling me to get as far away from her as possible. No more explanations, Sophia. You had your chance. You had every chance in the world to be honest with me, but you chose to lie, to betray me, and now you're going to pay for it. Her eyes widened, and her lips trembled. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned and walked out of the room, heading straight for my office. I needed to think, to plot. I had to make sure I was 10 steps ahead. I sat down at my desk, grabbed a notebook, and started scribbling down my plan. First Nathan. I needed to hit him where it hurt. He was the one who had been the most arrogant, the one who had thought he could get away with it all. He thought Sophia was a prize to be won, that he could simply waltz in and take whatever he wanted. But I wasn't going to let him. I was going to expose him for the fraud he was. I had connections, people who could dig up his past, and I would make sure it came to light. His business dealings weren't as clean as he pretended they were. I would leak his secrets to the press. His reputation would be destroyed. Second Lila. She thought she was some kind of hero in all of this, some sort of mentor to Sophia. But she had no idea what was coming for her. I was going to make sure she knew that helping Sophia was a mistake she would never live down. I had a few friends in high places who could make her life miserable. I could make sure she lost everything, her job, her social standing, and her reputation. She wouldn't be laughing for much longer. Finally Sophia. She had taken everything I gave her, everything we built together, and thrown it away. She thought I wouldn't find out, but she had no idea how far I would go to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. She wouldn't get away with this. Not with a simple apology, not with a few tears. My revenge would be calculated, slow, and painful. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of knowing when or how I would strike. I would make her feel the consequences of her actions every single day, just like she had made me feel. I stood up from my desk, my plan solidified in my mind. It wasn't just about punishing them anymore, it was about making sure they never forgot who I was. I would make them regret ever crossing me. Sophia, Nathan, Lila, none of them knew what was coming. But I did. And now, I was ready. Revenge isn't sweet, it's a slow burn that starts deep within, and once it consumes you, there's no going back. The morning after I made my plan was like no other. I had already set the wheels in motion. Nathan was about to lose everything he thought he could take for granted, and Lila, well, she was going to get a taste of what happens when you pick sides in a game you don't understand. But the most important part, Sophia. I knew I had to be patient, that I had to make sure the sting of what I was doing would last long after I'd finished. And trust me, I wasn't going to let them off easy. I started with Nathan. I called in a favor from an old friend of mine, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but who owed me a big one. Jack. He was a private investigator now, and he had the means to dig deep into anyone's past, especially someone like Nathan, who had probably gotten too comfortable with his so-called clean image. Jack was an expert at finding the skeletons people desperately wanted to keep hidden. I wanted Nathan's secrets on the front page, everywhere. I knew the kind of stuff I could use, things like questionable investments, unreported income, and a history of inappropriate relationships with business partners. Nathan had thought he was untouchable, but his perfect world was about to collapse. A few hours after our conversation, Jack sent me a report. Nathan's dirty laundry. There it was. It wasn't just business stuff, oh no. There were personal details in there that would make his life a living nightmare. He had a mistress, someone no one had ever known about, an affair that had been going on for nearly a year, long before he'd started pursuing Sophia. And even better, he had been funneling money into a shady account overseas. This was just the beginning. I had everything I needed to bring him down. The media would love this. They would tear him apart. The business world, especially the investors who had trusted him, would never forgive him. I wasn't just going to destroy his reputation, I was going to ruin his life. Next came Lila. She thought she could play the role of the wise, supportive friend, helping Sophia find herself during this affair. But what she didn't realize was that I had the perfect weapon. It wasn't difficult to dig into her past, her connections, her status, her overinflated sense of importance. It was all tied to her career. She was a consultant at a well-known firm. I had a few friends still in the industry who were more than willing to accidentally leak some interesting details about Lila's questionable ethics. I didn't just want to mess with her job, though. I knew Lila had always prided herself on her social standing. She was the type who thrived on approval, on admiration, and I was about to strip that away. I had already arranged for her name to appear on a scandalous gossip website. The article wasn't directly linked to her job, but it didn't need to be. The rumors alone would tarnish her reputation beyond repair. There would be whispers at every event, every dinner party. She would never get the respect she once had. I would make sure of that. But the final step in my revenge was the most satisfying. Sophia. She was the one who had broken me, who had shredded the trust I'd spent years building with her. I could see the way she tried to apologize, the way she thought a few tears would absolve her sins. But I wasn't the same man she had married. The old David would have taken her back, forgiven her. But now, I wanted to make her feel what it was like to lose everything. I decided it was time to confront her. She was still at home when I walked in. She had been texting me all morning, begging for a chance to talk, to explain herself. But I wasn't in the mood for explanations. Not anymore. David, she said, her voice tentative. We need to talk, please. I've been thinking about everything, and I swear I'll fix it. I didn't even respond. I just walked past her, heading straight for the living room. I wasn't interested in what she had to say anymore, not now that I had everything in place. Sophia followed me, her eyes filled with confusion. David, where are you going? Please. I turned to face her, the woman I once loved, now standing there like a deer caught in headlights. You don't get it, do you, Sophia? I said, my voice low, a quiet rage simmering underneath. You don't get to just fix things. You don't get to waltz back into my life like nothing happened. You don't get to think I'll just forget what you did, because I won't, and I'm not done. Her face dropped as reality finally hit her. David, please, don't do this. But it was too late for her pleas. I'd already made my decision. The affair with Nathan? That's just the start. I'm not forgiving you, Sophia. Not now, not ever. You broke my trust, and you're going to learn just how much that hurts, I said, my voice as cold as ice. I could see the panic in her eyes. What are you talking about? She whispered. Here's what's going to happen, I said, leaning in closer, letting the words sink in. Nathan's life is about to be shattered. His business will crumble. His reputation? Ruined. The affair with you? It'll be front page news soon enough. And Lila? She'll be begging for her old life back, but no one will want anything to do with her. You think you can play people? Well, you've played the wrong one. Sophia's face went white, and I could see the fear creeping into her features. But I wasn't done. You'll get your fair share of public humiliation too, I continued, my voice steady, unwavering. I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are. I'll make sure that even your closest friends look at you like a stranger. You'll never be able to look at Nathan the same way again. And you'll never be able to erase the memory of what you did. Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't care, not anymore. She had taken everything from me, and now it was my turn to take everything from her. David, please, she sobbed. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. No, I said, my voice hardening. You didn't want to hurt me, but you did, and now, you'll pay the price. I walked out, leaving her standing there, broken and defeated. As I drove away from the house, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. Nathan, Lila, Sophia, each of them would feel the consequences of their actions, and I would be the one to make sure they never forgot it. Revenge is a double-edged sword. You think it will bring satisfaction, but in the end, it only leaves you hollow. And sometimes, the people you thought you were punishing end up punishing you in ways you never expected. The weeks that followed were nothing like I'd imagined. I thought I'd feel a sense of justice when everything unraveled. I thought I'd feel vindicated, like I had reclaimed my dignity and pride. But as the dust settled, I realized just how much I had lost, not just in my marriage, but in myself. Nathan's downfall was swift and brutal. The media tore him apart. Investors pulled out, stocks plummeted, and his once loyal business partners turned on him, no longer willing to tolerate the dirty secrets that had been exposed. Jack had done his job perfectly, and the scandal hit the press harder than I'd expected. Nathan's mistress was publicly outed, and the affair became the focal point of his downfall. He was even caught on video in compromising positions, his public persona shattered. But even with all that destruction, Nathan's response was the last thing I expected. He disappeared. No more arrogant, smug posts on social media. No more confident strut in the office. He just vanished. No one knew where he went, and I had no clue either. His company fell apart, leaving employees scrambling to pick up the pieces of their careers, but as I sat back and watched it unfold, I didn't feel triumphant. Instead, there was emptiness. Hollow, relentless emptiness. Lila, on the other hand, was a different story. She was ruthless in her attempt to claw her way back to the top. The gossip sites that had blasted her for the scandal weren't enough to keep her down for long. She went into damage control mode, reaching out to the biggest influencers and public figures to have her side of the story heard. But the problem was, the damage had already been done. People started seeing her for who she really was, not just the polished, professional consultant she liked to pretend to be, but the woman who had betrayed her best friend for her own gain. And that was something she couldn't spin away. Her career faltered. Her once in-demand consulting gigs vanished. And just like that, she went from someone who thought she was untouchable, to someone barely scraping by. But it wasn't just her career that suffered. It was the way people viewed her. Once they knew about the affair, once they understood the extent to which she tried to play me, her friendships crumbled too. The people she once relied on for support turned their backs. Even her own family started questioning her actions, her integrity. She became a cautionary tale of betrayal, someone people talked about in hushed voices at parties and gatherings. And then there was Sophia. God, Sophia. I thought that seeing her suffer would bring me peace. I thought I would feel satisfaction when I saw the woman I once loved brought down to her knees, begging for forgiveness. But it didn't feel like that. She reached out to me countless times, sending messages, calling, and leaving voicemails. I could feel the desperation in her words. She even tried to show up at my house, but I refused to answer the door. The last thing I wanted to do was look at her, let alone hear her excuses. I didn't care anymore. She'd crossed the line, and there was no going back. But the strange thing was, despite everything she'd done to me, I couldn't shake the guilt. I'd watched her fall from grace just like Nathan, just like Lila, and yet there was something unsettling about it. Was this truly what I wanted? To see the woman who had once been my everything reduced to this, to witness her humbling herself at the mercy of a world that no longer cared for her, it wasn't supposed to hurt this much. There were nights when I sat in my living room, staring at the walls, wondering if I had gone too far, if I had lost my humanity in my quest for revenge. The satisfaction I thought I'd feel just wasn't there. Instead, I felt nothing. Nothing but the weight of the consequences I'd unleashed. Sophia eventually found a new place to live. She moved out of our house, taking nothing but the few belongings she could carry. I remember the day she left like it was yesterday. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but I didn't let myself feel sorry for her. I couldn't, not after everything. When the door closed behind her, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding since this all began. But it wasn't the relief I had imagined. It was a deep, gnawing emptiness, as if I had severed a part of myself that I couldn't get back. I still saw her sometimes, walking past me in the street, her head down, trying to avoid eye contact. Her presence was a constant reminder of the woman she used to be, the woman who had been part of my life for years. But now, she was a ghost, a distant memory of someone who didn't exist anymore. And every time I saw her, it hit me a little harder. Was all this really worth it? The pain I felt, the damage I had caused. It was clear that no one walked away from betrayal unscathed. Not Nathan, not Lila, not even Sophia, and certainly not me. The problem with revenge, I realized, was that it didn't stop once you'd inflicted it. It kept going, like a fire that spread out of control, leaving destruction in its wake, and in the end, you were left standing amidst the ashes, wondering if it had all been worth it. I couldn't undo the damage. The people I had hurt would never forget what I had done, and I couldn't change that. But I could change one thing myself. Maybe the revenge had been necessary at the time. Maybe it had been the only way I could get through the betrayal. But now, I had to move forward. The aftermath was mine to handle. It wasn't easy, but I started to rebuild, piece by piece. And as for Sophia, as much as I wanted to hate her for what she had done, I knew deep down that I had to let her go. She wasn't coming back into my life. And I wasn't going to be the person who let her destroy me any further. So, I moved on. Slowly, but surely. And as for Nathan and Lila, their worlds had crumbled, and I realized I didn't need to be the one to continue tearing them apart. They were already paying the price for their choices. In the end, the only person I had to save was me. And that's what I did.